So for this week on CyberSchool, we're covering picking the right device for loud environments. We get a lot of questions, and unfortunately, we get a decent amount of sales returns from customers buying products that they think are the right product for a particular environment. Some people are trying to use our office ringer in giant warehouses and are just displeased with the level of sound output from a 2.5-inch intercom speaker in a 50,000 square foot warehouse. So hopefully today, by going through the different devices and equipment that we have, you can better understand which device is right for these particular environments. So as you've probably seen as you've gone through our website, we've got a lot of different options to choose from when it comes to paging equipment. Anything from intercoms, things like of course, our standard intercoms, or to our office ringers, of course, speakers, and that can be our standard zip speaker, our Talkback speaker, or our two multicast speakers, the ceiling mount or the wall mount variant, or even horns. And that can be something like our IP66 horn, which is a big mover, usually the best option for people to go for, or a loudspeaker amplifier. So there's a lot of different options to choose from, and it can be a little overwhelming as you're trying to pick a particular product. But there's usually some good questions to ask as you're talking with your client, and you're just trying to evaluate the different options to kind of help narrow things down. And if you can narrow down the requirements and the expectations of the system, it can then lead to removing different options and make the choice a little bit easier. So there's some good questions to ask her, of course. Is this going to be indoor or outdoor rated? Because that'll really limit the amount of options that you have to choose from. Of course, you're not going to want to put one of our indoor rated speakers in an outdoor environment, say on a boat dock or something like that. That's just not going to work. And that can kind of really help you narrow things down. But to narrow it down even farther, are you looking for something like a modular design where you can add and input different accessories? Or are you looking for something simple where people just want to pick up a phone and they want to call a single device and make an announcement? You're not dealing with a big warehouse. You're dealing with, a warehouse that ships paper, and they've got, a 1,500 square foot warehouse. It's a tiny little warehouse. They don't need a lot of paging equipment. It could be something simple like that. And then also is just trying to gauge the expectations for coverage on how much area you're actually going to be covering and where they want those pages to be heard. Sometimes, somebody will come out and say, I've got a 50,000 square foot warehouse, and you initially design their paging solution to meet that full 50,000 square foot, but they're saying, okay, well, no, this is actually a delivery dock area. It's usually pretty quiet over there. We got a delivery guy with a phone. He's really good. He doesn't really need paging in that area. We want to concentrate in, 2 or 3 of these areas, and they can go and remove, 40,000 square feet of total area that they just don't need paging in. So really gauging your coverage expectation can be super duper important. But one thing to remember as you're going and picking different options is there's no right answer to a lot of these different questions. We've got so many different options, and it really just kind of depends on what they're looking for and what their expectation is. But, what's right for one site might not be right for a different site. Every single site is going to be unique in some characteristic. So there's not always going to be a right answer for the correct product for any situation. So where is this paging going to be required is a really, really important thing to cover. Of course, not all environments are going to be the same. They're going to vary between different locations. Again, they could be indoor, outdoor, and based on those types of environments, you're going to need different expectations out of that particular product. Of course, an indoor rated unit, you're not going to have to worry about different IP ratings, or you're going to have to quantify the different loudness expectations, the ambient noise level of an indoor environment versus an outdoor environment. Of course, when you're in an outdoor environment, you're going to be dealing with, the elements, rain, sleet, snow, what have you. And it could be potentially louder depending on where geographically that outdoor area is. It could be by a freeway. It could be nestled in just the right area where, based on all of the other surrounding buildings, it creates a nice little wind tunnel through that area. So it's always really windy. Kind of gauging and understanding the area where this equipment is going to go is super duper important. And when you're just thinking about, say, an indoor environment, you're going to need different equipment and different loudness capabilities in, say, a library versus an office environment, which are generally quieter environments as compared to something like a classroom. And then even at a classroom, it depends on, the particular grade of that classroom, where an elementary school classroom, something like, 5th or 6th grade, could be quite a bit louder than, say a whole bunch of high school seniors that are really focused on getting everything done. Or actually, that could be a whole lot louder if it's anything like my high school. Those are going to be really, really rambunctious kids that are going to be really loud until that bell rings and it's time for class. So, really gauging and understanding the environment, and not just whether it's indoor or outdoor, but the expectations and the ambient noise level is going to be super duper important. And that also expands into more warehouse or factory level areas where you're going to need potentially different things. If you've got a warehouse environment, you're probably dealing with some air compressors, some general forklift noise, that kind of general noise. Whereas in a factory, depending on what they're making there, it could be really, really loud, where you might have to go for visual notification instead. So there's a lot of things to consider. But the most important thing to consider is the ambient noise level of that particular area, which will really help you gauge and understand how loud an area is and how much paging equipment you'll need. If it's a dead quiet area like a library, you're not going to need to put speakers every 10 feet because it's super duper loud. Whereas, in a factory and they're manufacturing metal parts, it's going to be extremely loud with lathes and CNC machines and laser cutters, where you'll probably need, more paging coverage to be able to hear things. And then one of the final things to understand about when paging is required is, do they need something like Talkback or two-way communication? Is something like that expected and important to them for their paging solution? Or they're looking to, pick up a phone and just make an overhead announcement, hey, we're having a group huddle, or hey, great job last week getting all the orders out. There's pizzas in the break room, come have lunch. Are they expecting a two-way conversation with somebody, say in a warehouse, hey, I need this particular part up front. We've got an important customer up there. Can you guys get this to us? And they're expecting an answer from the people out there. So understanding all of the requirements and basically everything about the area where they're going to be doing paging is super duper important. So when we're talking about indoor, of course, I've kind of talked about, all the different options in there, but let's get into some specifics. So say you're speccing out an indoor area and you need some speakers. We've really got two different options for what we call our standard SIP speaker. These are a full-fledged unit. They've got really, really big actual speakers in there. The diaphragm's pretty big on them. They support a whole bunch of different accessories, and that's our standard SIP speaker. And those are available in one-way or two-way paging, basically with or without talkback, essentially with or without an onboard microphone. And the part numbers for those are 011394 and part number 011397. For our multicast speakers, these are a little bit, they're more economical, but they're a little bit smaller in terms of a speaker diaphragm, so they're not going to be as loud as the standard zip speaker. But these are really versatile in areas where you just need that one-way paging. Places like, classrooms, break areas, hallways, places like that, or even meeting areas where you just need a one-way announcement. You're not looking for that two-way communication, and you're looking for a more economical unit. You're not willing to spend or not looking to spend, kind of the high dollar for our full-fledged SIP speakers. Our multicast options are great. We've got our ceiling mount option pictured right there in the middle, and that one's part number 011458. We've also got a wall mount option, and that one's part number 011487. But if you're dealing with an environment, say, that's a little bit quieter, say, kind of a sales floor area, maybe a larger office, something for, say, one of your C-level employees, they want a little bit of extra notification just from their regular phone. They want something like an office ringer or even an intercom. Intercoms are absolutely perfect for that. And the main two options that I would recommend are, of course, for two-way communication, our standard indoor intercom. And that one's part number 011211, pictured there in the bottom left, or our office ringer, which is basically the indoor intercom, but without a microphone and without that button. It's just designed to make one-way announcements or ring, and that one's part number 011216. As we move forward in the outdoor options, we've got kind of a similar offering for our outdoor options, but the one thing we don't have for any of our outdoor speakers is going to be speakers. We generally target more horns for outdoor environments just because they can throw the sound a little bit farther as compared to, say, a standard speaker. When you're dealing with an outdoor environment, especially even an indoor warehouse environment, our newest product in this category, our SIP IP66 outdoor horn, has really been one of our biggest movers and really has kind of shook up, the paging environment, because this creates a really nice, easy to install, you basically just mount the unit and plug in a Cat 5 or Cat 6 cable and you're done. It's a really easy unit to work with. It covers a pretty wide area in terms of sound coverage. It covers around 7,500 square feet under normal ambient noise level conditions. That's a really powerful unit. It's pictured up there in our top right hand corner. That's part number 011457. So for our paging amplifier, it's really useful for indoor, outdoor environments. Of course, if you're going to be working with the actual paging amplifier itself, the unit is not IP66 rated, so you'd want to definitely secure the actual amplifier, that black box pictured down there in the bottom left-hand corner, in a kind of clean area, a place where it's not going to be exposed to the elements. If you're looking to put it in an area where it's going to be exposed to the elements or a lot of airborne dust, we've got some other options that I'll cover in a moment. But the paging amplifier is a really versatile unit, as are the loudspeaker amplifiers. And the paging amplifier, part number 011324. For the loudspeaker amplifiers, it's basically just a paging amplifier in a box, and that can come with or without a PoE injector, as shown and pictured there in our bottom right-hand corner. You can basically see how it looks in the enclosure. Of course, with or without that AC power injector in there. Really awesome units. It's a really nice NEMA rated IP66 enclosure. So that thing's fine to go on the elements or in an area where it's going to be getting kind of dusty. Say if it's in a chip factory or something like that, it's going to get a little messy. It's going to be fine to be put in a box or something like that. And the part numbers for those without the PoE injector, that's going to be part number 011405. And with the PoE injector, that's going to be 011404. And one thing to note when we're dealing with either the paging amplifier or the loudspeaker amplifiers, they do not come included with one of the 8-ohm mini horns that we recommend to pair with it to actually make sound. Either of those units, again, the paging amplifier or the loudspeaker amplifiers, only come with the paging amplifier. And if you opt for the loudspeaker amplifiers, it comes with the box. They do not come with any horns. The horns are sold separately. And then finally, if you're looking for basically a quieter announcement level where you're just looking for, or maybe two-way communication, one of our standard intercoms would be ideal. Our standard single button intercom is probably one of the biggest movers that we have in terms of a regular intercom, and that one's part number 011186. As we move forward, let's talk a little bit more about an office area and what you would typically spec for an office area. Of course, office areas, as most of us have worked in, they're typically quiet, and sometimes, especially as you move towards a sales floor or a technical support area, they can get a little bit louder. They might have kind of what one would label as a moderate ambient noise level, a little bit louder than a library. It's not going to be, something like a cafeteria or a meeting area where they'll be generally louder, but you've got kind of a moderate noise level in there. Speakers are going to be ideal for these types of areas just because they can kind of range in loudness and that ambient noise level, where sometimes they'll be a little bit quieter. You don't need that much paging coverage, whereas sometimes they can get pretty loud, especially if it's a busy sales day and everybody's phones are ringing off the hook. You got people on, people on hold because you're getting so many calls. The noise level is just going to go up. So things like our standard SIP speaker are going to be really powerful because they provide that versatility. Just because of that large speaker diaphragm and the fact that they're really easy to adjust the volume with the little volume wheel on it. And they're really adaptable because they're a full-fledged unit. They can support different accessories, things like an additional auxiliary speaker or even a strobe for visual notification. The multicast speakers are, of course, still going to be another great cost-effective solution. They're nowhere near as loud as the standard SIP speakers just because of that smaller speaker diaphragm, so they can be great options for an office area. But with an office area, you're not going to want to put one of our horns in there that can cover 7,500 square feet or 10,000 square feet. That's just going to be way too much and way too loud for an office area where you'll only be driving that thing at half power, if that. It's just going to be overkill. It's not going to be right for that particular solution. As we move forward to a warehouse, manufacturing, or outdoor area, you're generally going to be dealing with a moderate to high ambient noise level, especially if you're dealing with manufacturing. So you're really going to want to spec out something that can be a little bit louder. But generally, when you're dealing with one of these areas, they're going to be large open areas. They're not going to be, say, kind of cramped like an office area or something like that, where there's going to be a lot of surfaces for sound reflection. They're generally a lot more open, and sometimes they require zoned paging, just because sometimes these areas can be so big. You want to make a page to the supply area to let them know that, hey, all the assembly people are starting to run out of parts. Let's get some carts together with a whole bunch of kits, so that way we can keep the worker bees busy. So things like our IP66 horn are absolutely ideal for these types of areas, just because of the way that the horn is built. It's really easy to install, which is, I think, the biggest selling point, at least for me. This is the way that I recommend it to people, because it's so easy to install as compared to other paging options. You literally just mount it, plug it into the network, of course, with PoE, and you're done. The thing's basically ready to go. You don't have to wire any other horns. But the way that the thing is built, the style of the actual horn gives great directional audio coverage and spread. Just because of the way that we actually designed it, it really throws the sound a lot better and kind of spreads it out to a wider area. Plus, it's really easy to understand. But one thing to understand when you're working with the IP66 horn is it's an all-in-one solution, and it's kind of an enclosed solution, so it doesn't support any accessories. So if you get that, it's basically only going to get as loud as that thing can get. You can't tie in an additional horn. You can't tie in a strobe for any visual notification. Basically, all that thing is going to do is make noise. It's good at making noise, but that's all it's going to do. Whereas things like our loudspeaker amplifier or our paging amplifier can provide better coverage, because they've got two different horns, so you can face the horns in two directions. So you can get a much bigger coverage than you can with one horn that can only face in one direction, just in that single standpoint alone. With two horns, it can cover a lot more area. That one covers around 10,000 square feet per loudspeaker amplifier, of course, running it with two horns. And it gives the capability to expand. You might get it. You might only need the one horn to start, but say if the business expands, you add more areas to your warehouse. You say you build another building right next to it, and you kind of connect them. You can easily throw on an additional horn to double the amount of paging coverage. But it also supports things like our accessory strobe kit, to pair in visual notification. So it's really adaptable with different accessories, from visual or just additional notification endpoints. So it really makes it powerful. But one thing that I want to stress is the office ringer. I couldn't tell you how many times we've gotten either support calls where people are complaining, hey, can we make this office ringer any louder? We're putting it in our warehouse and it's just not loud enough. I couldn't tell you how many times we have this problem. The office ringer is not right for any warehouses, manufacturing, or outdoor environments. It's got a 2.5-inch speaker. It is not right for this type of scenario. If you're dealing with a warehouse, manufacturing, or outdoor, please do yourself a favor and don't go with something like our office ringer, or heck, even our standard intercoms. They're all going to use the same speaker. They're all going to use that same 2.5-inch speaker. It's just not big enough for these types of areas. So another thing that I just kind of wanted to cover with this one is an if this, then that. So if they're looking for something like Talkback, some good recommendations for an indoor environment for Talkback requirements are things, of course, like our SIP Talkback speaker. It's in the name. It's absolutely perfect for that. You've got that really big speaker diaphragm, so it can be loud and cover your paging, but it can also be talkback depending on how you interact with the unit. Say if you make a regular SIP call to it, you can have a full duplex conversation with that particular unit because of its onboard microphone. And we've also got, of course, things like our indoor intercoms, things that are specifically designed for talkback and two-way communication in an indoor environment. So if you're looking for talkback, the indoor intercoms are the absolute kings of that particular area. That's what you want to go for. If there's a requirement for talkback, pick an indoor intercom. But in the same thing for the outdoor environment, we're a little bit more limited in terms of our talkback hardware, because in an outdoor environment, we're mainly dealing with outbound paging, one-way paging. And if they want talkback in an outdoor environment, the outdoor intercoms are going to be absolutely ideal for that. We've got things like our standard single button intercom, a single button intercom with video, a keypad intercom, and a keypad intercom with video. So really versatile, powerful units. Then if we're looking for accessories, if you're looking for accessories, things like our standard SIP speakers, our intercoms, or office ringers are going to be ideal for indoor environments, just because they provide that of course, paging capability, but they've got different places to actually connect to in terms of accessory support. One thing that you will not see on there, and just a big point, is with the indoor environments, the multicast range of speakers, the ceiling mount or the wall mount, do not support accessories. They are designed as, basically plug them in and use them. They don't support any accessories. If you're looking for accessories and a speaker, go for the standard zip speaker. But if you're working with an outdoor environment, things like our paging amplifier or a loudspeaker amplifier, the paging amp in a box, they're absolutely ideal for accessory support. We kind of built those products around that. And of course, the intercom, it's going to share the same underlying circuit board as the indoor variants, that the indoor intercom or the office ringer. The outdoor intercoms all have the same circuit board and thus will support the same accessories. So this will kind of help you understand, okay, if they need accessories, then these are the products I want. And that kind of helps you narrow down these particular categories. So at the end of the day, when you're trying to pick the right hardware, always kind of set your expectations and then pick your hardware. It's always best to understand what your customer's looking for and what the requirements are before you try to pick hardware, because again, there's no right solution for any particular area. It's always going to be different between site to site. The key things to inquire about when you're trying to spec out different hardware are things like the coverage area. What features are they looking for besides picking up a phone and making an announcement? And are they looking, or are they planning to expand the business or looking to expand their capability in the future? Are all important things to cover when you're trying to pick the right hardware for an area. Generally speaking, speakers are for indoor environments, horns are for outdoor environments, and intercoms are always going to be best when you're dealing with a talkback scenario.
Thank you for watching this edition of CyberSchool. If you have any questions, please get in contact with our sales department. They are available by email at sales@cyberdata.net or by phone at 831-373-2601 extension 334. Please make sure to like this video and subscribe for more content like this from CyberData.